It's 6:58 a.m. on the 25th of October 1944. Commander Ernest E. Evans stands on the bridge of the USS Johnston, a Fletcher-class destroyer displacing 2,700 tons. Through his binoculars, he sees something that should not exist in these waters. Pagoda masts, massive gun turrets, the silhouettes of Japanese battleships and cruisers emerging from the gray dawn off Samar Island. 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, 11 destroyers. The most powerful surface action group Japan has ever assembled, bearing down on 6 American escort carriers protected by 3 destroyers and 4 destroyer escorts. The carriers are thin-skinned, slow, built to hunt submarines, not fight warships. The Johnston's 5-inch guns are toys compared to the 18-inch rifles of the Yamato, the largest battleship ever built. A single shell from that monster weighs more than Evans' entire forward gun mount. The lookout's voice cracks. "Battleship, sir. Multiple contacts." Bearing 270, Evans lowers his binoculars. His jaw sets. He does not wait for orders from the task unit commander. He does not calculate odds or consider retreat. On the day he commissioned this ship, October 27, 1943, he stood before his crew and made a promise. "This is going to be a fighting ship," he said. "I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off right now." No one got off. Now, 13 months later, harm's way has found them, and Ernest Evans does exactly what he promised. All ahead flank, left full rudder. General quarters, load torpedoes. The Johnston surges forward, alone, charging directly toward the Japanese center force. The deck vibrates as the engine room drives the turbines to maximum power. The ship heels hard as she turns, black smoke pouring from her stacks. Evans is 3/4 Cherokee and Muskogee Creek. He grew up in Oklahoma, poor, the son of a blacksmith. He earned his way to the Naval Academy, graduated in 1931, and spent 13 years working toward this moment. Every drill, every watch, every decision has led to this impossible charge. Behind him, the escort carriers are already turning south, running for their lives. Ahead, the Japanese cruiser Kumano leads the enemy column, her 8-inch guns trained forward. The range is closing, 18,000 yards, 16,000, 14,000. Evans' executive officer, Lieutenant Robert Hagan, appears at his side. "Sir, we're going in alone." Evans does not take his eyes off the enemy. Somebody has to start the fight. The Johnston's 5-inch guns open fire at 10,000 yards. The shells arc across the water, white splashes erupting around the Kumano. The Japanese cruiser is 10 times the Johnston's tonnage, armored against shells far larger than anything Evans can throw. But he is not trying to sink her. He is trying to make her turn away, to disrupt the attack, to buy time. The Kumano's guns swivel. Muzzle flashes bloom along her superstructure. Massive 8-inch shells scream overhead. One plunges into the sea 50 yards off the Johnston's port bow, throwing up a geyser of water that drenches the forward deck. Another passes so close the crew can hear it shriek. Evans does not flinch. Steady as she goes. Prepare to launch torpedoes. The trouble for the Americans began hours earlier. In the pre-dawn darkness, Admiral William Halsey, commanding the 3rd Fleet, took the bait. Japanese carriers, nearly empty of aircraft, appeared to the north. Halsey charged after them with every fast battleship and fleet carrier under his command. He left the invasion beaches at Leyte Gulf protected only by escort carriers and their destroyer screens. What Halsey did not know was that the Japanese had split their remaining fleet into 3 groups for a coordinated attack. The center force, commanded by Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, had transited the San Bernardino Strait during the night. Halsey's reconnaissance had spotted them earlier, but assumed American airstrikes had turned them back. They had not. Kurita's force was battered but intact, and it was now bearing down on the defenseless escort carriers of Taffy 3. The carriers could make 17 knots. Kurita's battleships could make 27. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter waiting to happen. Unless someone did something insane. At 6,000 yards, Evans gives the order, fire torpedoes. 10 Mark 15 torpedoes launch from the Johnston's deck tubes, trailing white wakes as they race toward the Kumano at 46 knots. The range is point blank for a destroyer. Suicidal. But the smoke and the chaos and the sheer audacity of the charge have bought Evans the opening he needs. The torpedoes run hot and true. The first one strikes the Kumano's bow. The explosion is massive, a tower of flame and water that tears open her forward hull. The cruiser slews to starboard, losing speed, dropping out of formation. One of Kurita's heavy cruisers, crippled by a destroyer that should not even be here. Evans does not celebrate. He is already turning hard to port, making smoke, trying to break contact before the Japanese battleships obliterate him. Too late. The Congo, a battlecruiser with 14-inch guns, has the Johnston's range. 3 massive shells bracket the destroyer. The fourth hits. The explosion lifts the stern out of the water and slams it back down. Shrapnel tears through the aft deckhouse. Men are thrown against bulkheads. Fires erupt. The hit destroys 1 engine room, 1 fire room, 1 generator, and the after-steering compartment. The Johnston's speed drops from 30 knots to 17. Her power is cut in half. Worse, a 14-inch shell has detonated in the bridge area. Evans is thrown against the chart table. When he pulls himself up, his left hand is mangled, 2 fingers nearly severed. Blood streams down his uniform. His shirt is shredded by shrapnel. But he does not leave the bridge. Damage report. The reports come in, shouted over sound-powered phones. The aft section is a wreck. Casualties are heavy, but the forward guns still have power. The torpedo tubes are empty, but the 5-inch mounts can still fire. Evans wraps his ruined hand in a rag. We're still in this fight. For the next 2 hours, the Johnston becomes a ghost. She ducks in and out of rain squalls, using smoke and weather to mask her movements. She fires at Japanese cruisers, drawing their attention away from the carriers. She intercepts destroyer attacks, trading shells with ships twice her size. Evans commands from the bridge, refusing medical attention, his hand useless, his uniform soaked with blood. The Japanese are everywhere. The Yamato's 18-inch guns fire salvos that throw up water columns taller than the Johnston's mast. The cruiser Tone closes to 7,000 yards, pounding the little destroyer with 8-inch fire. The heavy cruiser Haguro joins in. Shells hit the Johnston repeatedly. The forward stack is blown away. The bridge is riddled with shrapnel. Gun mounts are knocked out one by one. By 9:30 a.m., the Johnston is dying. She has no power, no steering. Fires rage below deck. Dead in the water, she drifts in the smoke, her remaining crew fighting the flames. Japanese destroyers close in for the kill. Evans stands on what remains of the bridge, leaning against the twisted metal, too weak to stand unaided. A Japanese destroyer passes within 2,000 yards. Her captain, seeing the Johnston's condition, does something extraordinary. He orders his guns to cease fire. On the Japanese bridge, officers salute the wreck of the American destroyer. It is a gesture of respect, recognition of courage. But it does not stop the inevitable. The Johnston is settling by the bow. The forward deck is awash. The order is given. Abandon ship. Evans does not abandon. Survivors later report seeing him on the bridge as the Johnston rolled. He was still giving orders, still trying to save his men as the water closed over the deck. At 10:10 a.m., the USS Johnston slips beneath the waves, taking Commander Ernest E. Evans with her. She has fought for 3 hours and 12 minutes against impossible odds. She has crippled one heavy cruiser, damaged several others, and disrupted an entire fleet. The carriers she was protecting have escaped. Taffy 3 has survived. The invasion beaches at Leyte are safe. Ernest Evans has kept his promise. He went in harm's way, and he did not come back. Commander Ernest E. Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the first Native American in the U.S. Navy to receive the nation's highest decoration for valor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." The USS Johnston was lost with 186 of her crew, including Evans. Of the 327 men aboard, 141 survived. Many credited their survival to Evans' leadership, his refusal to surrender, his decision to charge when retreat was the rational choice. The battle off Samar became legendary. Historians called it the greatest upset in naval history. 3 destroyers and 4 destroyer escorts held off a battleship fleet. The Japanese, confused by the ferocity of the American defense, believed they were fighting fleet cruisers and destroyers, not the thin-skinned escorts they had actually engaged. Vice Admiral Kurita, shaken by the losses and the chaos, ordered a retreat just as victory was within his grasp. He would later be criticized for his decision. But the men of Taffy 3 knew the truth. They had not won by firepower, they had won by audacity. The wreck of the USS Johnston was discovered in 2019, resting at a depth of 21,180 feet in the Philippine Sea, the deepest shipwreck ever located. Her hull was torn open, her guns silent, but her battle flag still flew in the memory of those who served. In 2020, Evans' descendants were presented with his Medal of Honor in a ceremony at the Pentagon. His great-nephew, a Navy officer, accepted the medal. He said his family had always known Ernest Evans was a warrior, but they had not known, until the medal came home, how deeply the Navy honored his sacrifice. For the man who charged a battleship in a destroyer, there was no other choice. He had made a promise. And Ernest Evans always kept his word. The Johnston went in harm's way, and so did he. Want to see more incredible stories of courage, sacrifice, and impossible battles from World War II? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next story.